Bruce, great to meet you. Being a Broadway babe, I couldn't wait to dig into this one. My goodness, I don't even know where to start. First of all, it was fantastic. I
Oh,
learned
thank you.
a lot about Liza, and I want to ask you right off the bat, on earth did you even get this started and gain her trust?
Well, part of it was kind of my cred, I like to think, in terms of my history with Liza, which was, I say I was too young to see Cabaret, way too young,
Yeah.
but I saw the poster, and the poster was, in my eyes, young kid, very naughty, and it drew me in. I wanted to see it. Then I saw Arthur in 1980. And I said, my God, what a funny comedic actress, not realizing that it was the same cabaret person. So I went back and started watching her early stuff, Sterile Cuckoo and Cabaret.
Yeah.
And then in 2008, I had this very, very powerful kind of experience with her that I think informed me in a way that when we finally did talk to Liza, it was, oh, okay, we're going to trust this guy, which was in 2008, she appeared on a Broadway stage in Liza's at the Palace.
Mhm.
And I went and saw it, and there was a lot of questions at that time about what she would she had just had hip surgery. She had just gone through a crazy marriage. There
Yeah.
was a lot of question whether she could still sing. And I will never forget, the audience was like hushed, and the spotlight comes on Liza. She comes out, and everybody was like, could she still be Liza? And she literally, did one of her kind of signature hand movements, and the audience lost its mind in
Of
a way
course.
I had never seen in my life. It was an incredible thing to see where people were not only giving her a standing ovation, they were standing on Broadway seats
Wow.
with tears running down their cheeks, grown men, grown women applauding. And I realized at that moment, my God, this woman has a really, really profound connection
Mm.
with her kind of audience in a way that wasn't just we like her song, we like her in Cabaret, she's a big star. It was no, it was going very, very deep. So that when we first started talking to Liza and her team, I like to feel that I had some credibility. I did tell them that
Sure.
story, and the real game changer was when they said, by the way, Liza just found 25 hours of footage from the 1970s that has never been seen before. Are you guys
Wow.
interested in seeing it? And of course, our jaws dropped. Oh my God. And when we brought it in and we started watching it, and we watched it with people from different generations in the office, we were just blown away by the explosive talent. This was the it girl at the
Mhm.
height of her power. She was on the cover of Time and Newsweek the same week, which I don't know if people today realize what that was. I mean, that was presidents and popes, not
Yeah.
performer. And so when we saw that, we realized that this world of the 70s had to be the Liza story,
For
much more
sure.
than, as they say, the cradle to grave, where she did this, and then in the 80s she did this, and then in the 90s she did this. No, the Liza story was about how Liza became Liza, and she
Yeah.
became Liza after her mother's death in the early 70s. So I
Yeah.
think once we pitched that to Liza and her team, particularly, hopefully, I like to think with the story of my, Broadway experience with Liza,
Mm.
hopefully that all combined to, okay, these guys, we're going to trust them. So,
Yeah. My God, what a gift getting all of that footage from when she was so much younger and everything. I have to say though, I always felt for her like we're probably around the same age, and I also was quite a young girl when I saw Cabaret. Probably shouldn't have, but did as well because I, love that kind of stuff. But I really didn't care what my parents said because whatever, I don't care.
right.
But yeah, she really, really struck me. And then, just following her career, but I always felt bad for her because she was always going to be Judy Garland's daughter. And as we see, in your doc, I don't want to give away too much because I want people to discover it like I did. But, God, the insensitivity of so many journalists, like what would you do if you could cross the yellow brick road? Like, just
Yeah.
God, how the frick did she even deal with all that stuff? I mean, she was always so composed. I never really saw her lose it, but she still had to be Judy Garland's daughter. She had to prove herself even more, and who her father was as well, right?
We were blown away when we looked at some of the footage from the 70s, not just ours, but all the 70s footage, particularly interviews with journalists. We couldn't believe the questions they were asking her. It was like, Liza, you're never going to be as talented a singer as your mother, right? Or
God.
you don't really have movie star looks.
Uh,
In the film, there's one horrific scene where, a journalist actually asks her, "What does it feel like to be ugly?" I mean, just
uh,
mind-blowing. You cannot believe it. And yet, what I think that does, what I hope that does, is show that although Liza was born on third base, how difficult her road was. And we all talk about, privilege and somebody's privilege. I think in Liza's case, her privilege was actually a double-edged sword. There were a
yeah,
lot of really bad things about being the daughter of not only Judy Garland, but Vincent Minnelli,
for
who
sure.
was literally the visionary of musicals,
Mhm.
MGM, that whole golden age. And to have that as your parents, I mean, the fact that, I mean, think of how many celebrity children of, legends do you know have become legends on their own. So
Yeah.
I think, the fact that she did kind of become a legend on her own, and is an EGOT winner. And my God, you go into
Mhm.
her house, and it's like the
From
honorable,
a museum.
King of Sweden, and the the French Republic. I mean, it's just crazy.
Yeah.
She's made it on her own without question, and that must be a good feeling on her part.
Yeah, and I think too, she really did make a point of surrounding herself with some pretty good people, like people who really genuinely loved her and wanted to help her. Like they weren't out for, from what I could see anyway, trying to profit off of her. When you look at uh Ebb and David Feinstein and I mean just so
Michael
many
Feinstein,
people.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and what's amazing is how open she is, giving them the credit, which is really unheard of, I think, for somebody of legend status like her. The
yeah,
fact that she says, "Oh, Fred Ebb invented me. Oh, Halston, he invented me." The fact
right.
that a major star is willing to do that is unbelievable. It is literally unbelievable. And I think, one of the things, when you're making a film, you try to put in kind of themes that are important to you and whatever. But the most fun thing is always themes that you didn't put in but came out anyway,
Mm,
just out of the process. And one of the
yeah,
things I'm so happy about that was not really planned was looking at it, that in many ways the film is a great kind of celebration of the power of mentors to transform us, because
yeah,
many people keep people at arm's length and don't really give what is available to be taken. And
mm,
Liza was the exact opposite. She sought out mentors. She very, very consciously and very, very aggressively sought out people who would make her better.
yeah.
And of course, it helps that her mentors were all geniuses. I mean,
Yes.
it's like, oh, I needed to learn dance. Oh, Bob Fosse helped me.
Yeah. Oh well, yeah, just give him a ring.
I needed to have a fashionable look. Oh, I got Halston. Yes,
Yeah.
that's true. But as Liza herself says in the film, which is one of my favorite things she says, is, I think I was really good at picking people. I think
Yes.
that's my talent.
Yeah.
And I think it's true. And I think the results speak for themselves.
Okay, but having said that, maybe not so much with husbands. Okay, so I want to go back because I was actually writing down all the men, like I couldn't even remember. Look, I was the hugest Peter Allen fan. Like I was obsessed with him. When he came here to Toronto, I'd see him twice in one day. I got to interview him before he died. I mean, I could have died and gone to heaven after meeting him.
An
He was a
enormous
genius
talent, an
and
enormous
huge,
talent. Yeah.
huge. I mean, I even saw Hugh Jackman play him on. I mean, I was obsessed with Peter Allen, and I And I'm like, oh, right, she married him too. Like, oh my God, yeah. But I want to ask you, I have a list of the names, but you know them. Who do you think ultimately was the love of her life?
Most people we interviewed said the love of her life was Peter Allen. Now,
Oh,
I'm talking about from a relationship standpoint, the loves of her life were probably Halston and Fred Ebb.
what about Charles Aznavour?
Aznavour, yes, but I think Halston for a longer period of time, certainly in her crucial years, and the amount of time they spent together. And Fred Ebb he went way beyond a friend. I mean, he
Mm,
was not just a shoulder to cry on. I mean, Michael says everything she says on stage was written and crafted by Fred Ebb. So I
yeah,
think they knew her very, very deeply but from a husband perspective. I think Peter Allen was I mean, they loved each other
yeah,
uh, until the day he died, sadly, tragically
yeah.
from me.
Yeah, I know. Or trust me, I still mourn that. I just, yeah.
And it's
Okay.
interesting when Liza talks about Peter Allen, she really does focus on the talent. You know,
Yeah,
she loves him as a person and he was funny and everything, but she was in awe of his talent.
yeah.
And I think that's also a very Liza thing.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, Bruce, you know, when you finished making this and having spent so much time with her, and I love still how feisty she is and how, you know, I have to be shot from here and how she looks
Yeah.
and she's just so, yeah, I love it. She's so Liza. I just love
Classic
it.
Liza,
Yeah,
classic.
classic, right? But what ultimately surprised you or impressed you most about her after finishing this whole thing?
I think what impressed me well, there were several things, which is one, her ability, as I said, to open her heart to mentors and let people in.
Yeah,
Number two, I was actually going to take it out of the film, the whole section on her and her friends, because it seemed like so cliche. Oh, we're going to do a thing about a celebrity and friends are so important to her. But friends are insanely important to her.
mm,
And I think the experience of meeting Liza is the most eye-opening thing in that, you're going to a icon, to a legend, and your natural instinct is, oh, I loved you in Cabaret. I love all your albums. I loved you here. And, and that's all great. But the unnerving thing about Liza is after you do that, and she lets you do it a little. She's
yeah.
like, tell me about you. And
Oh,
she leans in, and you're like, all right, she's just doing kind of the rote thing. All right, but then she asks follow up. No, no, no. Tell me about your aunt. Where does she live?
wow.
And you realize very quickly she actually cares. And
Yeah,
it is, as I say, very unnerving, especially for, a celebrity to care so much about you. And she certainly feeds off that. She feeds off the love of an audience, and she needs the friendship and these really strong relationships, even if she's just met you. And you
mm,
do, if you meet her for a minute or two, you feel like you could call her the next week and ask her, what she had for dinner, that she's just so open and so friendly. And I
yeah.
think that is a really eye-opening experience with her, and I'm sure it has something to do with her success.
Oh, yeah. And just lastly, what was her reaction to watching this and watching her life?
Yeah, watching her live. I think one of the things that she liked was that it wasn't even just about her life, but it was about celebrating her mentors. And I
Right.
think that is something really important to Liza, to get that out, that these five people invented her.
Mm.
And I think she was very, very pleased that we ended up kind of crafting the film around those stories.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it really is a wonderful look at her life. I thank you personally for this. I can't wait until your next victim, honestly.
Oh, thanks. Get the word out.
I will. I will.
We
I
we
just loved
hope.
it. Yeah.
We hope both core Liza fans and people who didn't even know that Judy Garland was her mother all love
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah, well, listen, of course, there's a whole new generation of people
there
who,
is.
are discovering it. That's always what's so wonderful, I think, about streaming services and things like that, because there's so many, it just opens the world to new fans and yeah, so I think they'll love it. I loved it. I thank you for it and thank you for your time today. Really
Great.
appreciate it.
Can't thank you enough.
My
Thank you.
pleasure. Come visit us in Toronto, okay?
We will.
All right. Take care.